A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. Chapter 20. The Ogre's Castle. Between 6 and 9 we made 10 miles, which was plenty for a horse carrying triple, man, woman, and armor. Then we stopped for a long nooning under some trees by a limpid brook. Right so came by and by a knight riding, and as he drew near he made dolorous moan, and by the words of it I perceived that he was cursing and swearing. Yet nevertheless was I glad of his coming, for that I saw he bore a bulletin board, wherein in letters all of shining gold was writ, "Use Peterson's prophylactic toothbrush, all to go." I was glad of his coming, for even by this token I knew him for a knight of mine. It was Sir Madoc de la Montaigne, a burly great fellow whose chief distinction was that he had come within an ace of sending Sir Launcelot down over his horsetail once. He was never long in a stranger's presence without finding some pretext or other to let out that great fact. But there was another fact of nearly the same size, which he never pushed upon anybody unasked, and yet never withheld when asked. That was, that the reason he didn't quite succeed was that he was interrupted and sent down over horsetail himself. This innocent vast lubber did not see any particular difference between the two facts. I liked him, for he was earnest in his work and very valuable, and he was so fine to look at, with his broad mailed shoulders and the grand leonine set of his plumed head, and his big shield with its quaint device of a gauntleted hand clutching a prophylactic toothbrush with motto, "Try no you don't." This was a toothwash that I was introducing. He was a weary, he said, and indeed he looked it, but he would not ally it. He said he was after the stove polish man, and with this he broke out cursing and swearing anew. The bulletin boarder referred to was Sir Oswath of Sir Luce, a brave knight and of considerable celebrity on account of his having tried conclusions in a tournament once, with no less a mogul than Sir Gaheris himself, although not successfully. He was of a light and laughing disposition, and to him nothing in this world was serious. It was for this reason that I had chosen him to work up a stove polish sentiment. There were no stoves yet, and so there could be nothing serious about stove polish. All that the ancient needed to do was to deftly and by degrees prepare the public for the great change, and have them established in predilections toward meekness against the time when the stove should appear upon the stage. Sir Madoc was very bitter, and brake out anew with cursings. He said he had cursed his soul to rags, and yet he would not get down from his horse. Neither would he take any rest or listen to any comfort until he should have found Sir Oswath and settled this account. It appeared, by what I could piece together of the unprofane fragments of his statement, that he had chanced upon Sir Oswath at dawn of the morning, and been told that if he would make a short cut across the fields and swamps and broken hills and glades, he could head off a company of travelers who would be rare customers for prophylactics and toothwash. With characteristic zeal, Sir Madoc had plunged away at once upon this quest, and after 3 hours of awful cross-lot riding had overhauled his game. And behold, it was the 5 patriarchs that had been released from the dungeons the evening before. Poor old creatures! It was all of 20 years since any one of them had known what it was to be equipped with any remaining snag or remnant of a tooth. "Blank, blank, blank him," said Sir Madoc. And I do not stole polish him, and I may find him, leave it to me. For never no night that height old swaths or aught else may do me this disservice and bite on live, and I may find him, the which I have thereunto sworn a great oath this day. And with these words and others, he lightly took his spear and gat him thence. In the middle of the afternoon we came upon one of those very patriarchs ourselves, in the edge of a poor village. He was basking in the love of relatives and friends, whom he had not seen for 50 years. And about him and caressing him were also descendants of his own body, whom he had never seen at all till now. But to him these were all strangers. His memory was gone, his mind was stagnant. It seemed incredible that a man could outlast half a century shut up in a dark hole like a rat. But here were his old wife and some old comrades to testify to it. They could remember him as he was in the freshness and strength of his young manhood, when he kissed his child and delivered it to his mother's hands and went away into that long oblivion. People at the castle could not tell within half a generation of the length of time the man had been shut up there for his unrecorded and forgotten offense. But his old wife knew, and so did her old child, who stood there among her married sons and daughters, trying to realize a father who had been to her a name, a thought, a formless image, a tradition, all her life, and now was suddenly concreted into actual flesh and blood and set before her face. It was a curious situation. Yet it is not on that account that I have made room for it here, but on account of a thing which seemed to me still more curious, to wit, that this dreadful matter brought from these downtrodden people no outburst of rage against these oppressors. They had been heritors and subjects of cruelty and outrage so long that nothing could have startled them but a kindness. Yes, here was a curious revelation indeed of the depth to which this people had been sunk in slavery. Their entire being was reduced to a monotonous dead level of patience, resignation, dumb, uncomplaining acceptance of whatever might befall them in this life. Their very imagination was dead. When you can say that of a man he has struck bottom, I reckon there is no lower deep for him. I rather wished I had gone some other road. This was not the sort of experience for a statesman to encounter who was planning out a peaceful revolution in his mind, for it could not help bringing up the unget-aroundable fact that all gentle cant and philosophizing to the contrary notwithstanding, no people in the world ever did achieve their freedom by goody-goody talk and moral suasion, it being an immutable law that all revolutions that will succeed must begin in blood, whatever may answer afterward. If history teaches anything, it teaches that. What this folk needed, then, was a reign of terror and a guillotine, and I was the wrong man for them. 2 days later, toward noon, Sandy began to show signs of excitement and feverish expectancy. She said we were approaching the ogre's castle. I was surprised into an uncomfortable shock. The object of our quest had gradually dropped out of my mind. This sudden resurrection of it made it seem quite a real and startling thing for a moment, and roused up in me a smart interest. Sandy's excitement increased every moment, and so did mine, for that sort of thing is catching. My heart got to thumping. You can't reason with your heart. It has its own laws, and thumps about things which the intellect scorns. Presently, when Sandy slid from the horse, motioned me to stop, and went creeping stealthily with her head bent nearly to her knees toward a row of bushes that bordered the declivity, the thumpings grew stronger and quicker, and they kept it up while she was gaining her ambush and getting her glimpse over the declivity. and also while I was creeping to her side on my knees. Her eyes were burning now as she pointed with her finger and said in a panting whisper, "The castle! The castle! Lo, where it looms!"